Hello and welcome to another episode of Pezhman Podcast. I'll be your host today. My name is Sine Saemian. Today, again, as usual, I'm joined by two regular panelists, Pezhman Pars. How are you doing, Pezhman?
Hi, Sina. Nice to be back with a new pod.
Good to speak to you. And also we have Arash Eftekhari. Arash, it's great to speak to you.
Hey, thanks a lot. Good to be back here with you guys.
Cheers, guys. To kick things off for this podcast, we'll be discussing two topics very briefly that's been surfacing the Iranian football community in the past week or so. And the first one is Sardar Azmoun's supposed move to Liverpool, and we've heard it from a few sources in the UK that Liverpool have been scouting Azmoun very extensively, and they're planning a move for him in January. You know, as we've heard in the past few years, Azmoun, of course, is only 21 years old, and his performances in Russia have attracted a lot of attention from top European clubs, most notably from Arsenal and AC Milan back in 2014 when he was still at Rubin Kazan. But this is something new, and this link to Liverpool is something that I'm certainly really excited about, because I feel like he can really fit into the way Jurgen Klopp plays at Liverpool. But Pezhman, what do you think about this? These rumours that have been surfacing, and do you think there's any substance to them?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, there are only rumours, and I would love to see him to play in another club or in another league, because he's shown himself well good in the national team, and he also did good in Champions League. But I can't see him getting any play time in a team such as Liverpool. They have plenty of good players and a coach that is doing really good now. The only reason I can see him playing there is if Jurgen Klopp sees something special in him and wants to use him as a player of the squad that gets some playing time. For me, I would like to see him in a smaller English team, like, I don't know, Hull, City, Reading, West Bromwich, whatever. Something that he might get some playing time. I can't see that happening in Liverpool.
Arash, back in last January, we heard from close sources to Sardar Azmoun that there was a supposed bid from Stoke City around £6-7 million, which was rejected by his club. And from what we heard, he wasn't too keen to move to Stoke. I think that, to me, that indicates that he's looking for a bigger club to move to, because, as we know, he enjoys living in Russia. He's been there for so many years. And he's enjoying his football with Rostov at the moment as well. So, how do you think this will develop in the next few weeks and the next couple of months? Do you think if the rumours do become a reality and Liverpool do go for him, what do you think his chances are of moving? And as Pezhman mentioned, his time on the pitch, how do you think that will go?
Well, if that does take place, like you said, it's like we've been talking about how these are rumors so far. If that were to take place, from the outset, I could say that sounds great when you hear Sardar Azmoun's name if you hear Azmoun's name in the same sentence with Liverpool. Yeah, that sounds great. But my concerns were the same. Right when I heard, my reactions were the same as many other Iranian football fans when I heard about these rumors, and that yes, it would be great. But the biggest concern is that would he get enough time on the pitch? Would he play a lot? Because we've seen some Iranian footballers go to England before and things did not work out very well. Teimourian played at Bolton a decent amount of appearances under Big Sam Allardyce, but after that he completely disappeared under Fulham. He had a decent spell on loan when he was at Barnsley, but we also know that Karim Bagheri only made, I think, 1 or 2 appearances for Charlton Athletic, and Hossein Kabi did not do much for Leicester City in the championship as well. So, I like what you said, that if he maybe it'd be better for him to play for a team that's play for a team in the English Premier League where he'd get a lot of time on the pitch. But yeah, with Liverpool, it just makes me say that I just wonder, would he play a lot, and would it affect how often he gets called up to Team LE?
I completely agree, but from my perspective, one of the things that's really got me excited about supposed move. I mean, as I mentioned, he was previously linked to Arsenal and AC Milan, and to myself, I just thought, to those clubs, if he moves there, he wouldn't get much of playing time. But with this Liverpool team, there's a lot of criticism that Daniel Sturridge, who is the usual number 9 for Liverpool, he's received a lot of criticism for the way he plays, and the fact that he's dropped for Firmino, who's not even a striker. And I can see similarities between what Jurgen Klopp wants his striker to do and the things that Azmoun does for us and for Team Mali, as we've seen, the way he runs the channels so well. He's got a great work rate. And, of course, with the well-known style of play of Jurgen Klopp's teams with high pressing and putting teams under pressure, I think he would really fit into that system. Of course, he might not be ready to start, but I think if he does move to Liverpool, he'll have a great chance of developing into a striker that we all know he can be. But moving on to the next topic, Pezhman, I know you have something to talk about in terms of the Iran beach soccer national team and their performances in the World Cup. As far as I know, they got to the final, but I wasn't really following the games. But tell us a bit more about the performances, the results, and how Iran really overachieved with the results.
Yeah, well, first of all, it wasn't really the World Cup. It was what we call the unofficial World Cup. In basically, the best team from each continent plays in a tournament in Dubai called the Samsung Intercontinental Cup.
So something like a Confederations Cup that we have in football.
Yeah, something like that, but still, something like that, basically. The World Cup, I think, is in Honduras next year, if I'm not mistaken. But about the games itself, there are really strong teams there, such as Brazil, such as Russia, and also such as Iran. Iran have a really good beach soccer team with maybe one of the best goalkeepers in the world, Peyman Hosseini. To make a long story short, they managed to win all their games in the group stage, tying against Russia, but winning on penalties, and then beating Tahiti in the semifinals as well. Tahiti, a team that maybe we'll laugh when we hear about them, but they have a really good beach soccer team that actually was able to win against Iran last time in the World Cup. So it was a sweet revenge. In the finals, Brazil, maybe one of the best teams in the world in beach soccer, was too hard for Iran to beat. So they lost 6-2. But nonetheless, Iran, besides getting the best tournament, the best goalkeeper of the tournament, they scored some amazing goals, and they showed that they can very well be a heavy title contender for the World Cup. So it will be really fun to see. And also, beach soccer is really entertaining to watch because there's plenty of really cool and awesome goals scored from everywhere. Even the goalkeepers sometimes score. So it's cool to see.
I did see some of the goals that Iran scored and some spectacular overhead kicks there, and it was really great to see. But moving on to the main topic of this question, as we know, we have a huge game coming up on Tuesday. Iran has to travel to Malaysia to play Syria, and for me, this is a really important game. It's a game that we are marked as heavy favourites. No one really gives any chance to Syria in terms of getting a result, but I feel these games are the ones that we really put ourselves in danger of not getting the results that we want. But coming to you, Pezhman, before we get into the squads and the friendly that we played last week, what are your expectations for this game, and what do you think the end result would be for Iran?
I think it will be a draw. That's the pessimistic side of me. But I hope that Iran will actually win 2-0. But as you say, these kind of games are always hard for Iran to play. So that's my answer.
All right. Well, just to mention that the current season in Malaysia, there's a lot of heavy rains and storms, and I'm not sure if that will help Iran in their quest to get the 3 points. But how do you see this game going?
It's tough. I know. Sometimes I feel like I'm starting off with a typical answer from a lot of Iranian football fans, but I'm ready to say that it's going to be an extremely tough match. I know a lot of people are not giving Syria much of a chance, but you already saw that they tied South Korea 0-0 on the 6th of September, only in front of 4,000 fans. They barely lost 1-0 to Uzbekistan in Tashkent. I mean, they beat China in China. That's something Iran was unable to do. They barely lost to Qatar in Doha. And overall, I just know it's going to be an extremely tough match. The rain can have a huge effect on the game. I feel like it could be one of those very boring matches. It could even be frustrating. And as in when it comes to the score, all I could say is I just want Team Melli to find a way to win. It could be ugly, but we all know an ugly win is better than an ugly tie or a bad loss.
Moving on to the squad that has been announced by Queiroz, there was a few injury scares that really certainly got me worried as well. And then there was the suspension of Sardar Azmoun and Ehsan Safi by the AFC after the incidents after the Iran versus Qatar game in Tehran, which was really surprising to me for the players to be suspended. Of course, a few Qatari players have been banned as well for a couple of games. But heading into this game, of course, we'll be missing Sardar Azmoun, Ehsan Safi. Ali Reza Beiranvand has been ruled out due to a wrist injury. Those players could not be involved for obvious reasons, suspensions and injuries, but there was a couple of really surprising omissions as well. Ali Reza Haqiqi, who was Iran's number one goalkeeper for around 2 years, he's not been invited, and that was really surprising for me because I thought that with Beiranvand being ruled out, we would see Haqiqi in goal, but he's not been invited, and Akhbari, Mazaheri, and we'll see the return of Sosha Makani back into the frame as well. So Arash, coming back to you again, how do you see the goalkeeper situation for the game against Syria, and who are you expecting to start in goal for us?
Well, I would like to see Mohammad Reza Akhbari of Traktor Sazi start in goal. I feel like he's the best choice for Iran. I know he's the youngest one there, but I think he would do a great job for Iran. Like I said, I'd like to see him start, but I think it's actually going to be Mohammad Rashid Mazaheri of Zobahan, just because he seems like he's played one more match than Akhbari, and he's done a good job with Zobahan. I think Makani maybe could have a chance. He's been in pretty good form with Mjøndalen in the Norwegian First Division, but if I were to make a guess, I think it's going to be Mazaheri to start.
Pezhman, I can make a case for any of the three goalkeepers to start. I mean, as Arash said, Akhbari has been in fantastic form for Traktor Sazi for almost 2 years now. He's come through the ranks. He's played at almost every level for the national team. So it'd be great to see a young goalkeeper really getting his chance. And also Mazaheri, he's played in a World Cup qualifier before. He started in the last round. I can't remember which opposition it was. And of course, Makani, he's a bit of a character, to say the least. But he's been playing really well for Mjøndalen, and he's got him into a playoff spot as well in the Norwegian First Division. But what do you think? What are your thoughts about this current goalkeeping situation that we have?
Well, I'm just glad that you're not playing against one of the strongest teams, because then I would actually like to see a better goalkeeper, or maybe Beiranvand. But I agree with you also that any of these three goalkeepers, they have a case good enough to play. For me, I would say Akhbari would be the closest one actually. He's been in the squad for a while now. Not a short while, but he's been in the squad now for some time. I think he knows the players that he will play with better than both Makani and Mazaheri, although Makani have been in the squad in previous years. I see Akhbari as the best goalkeeper for the games against Syria. It doesn't mean that he will be the best goalkeeper of these three goalies that we have to choose from. But Akhbari, he's done good in Teraktor for a long time, for a couple of seasons now, and hopefully he will find a new club outside of Iran that can help him develop, because I can't see him really be any better than he is in Iran now. I think he can be much better. That's what I want to say. I think he can be much better than he is today. But for me, he's the number one today.
Of course, as we are talking about the goalkeepers, we've received a lot of questions on Twitter about this upcoming game against Syria. And one of the questions is from Aviation Iran, and he's asking for comments on Alireza Hayri's future and current role in Team Melli after Beyranban's performances. And of course, with Beyranban's injury, this will add even more fuel to the current situation with Hayri, that the number one is injured, but he's still not been invited. And that, for me, really marks the end of his career with the national team. The fact that he's been without a club since June or July, and that is really, really disappointing to see from a goalkeeper who a lot of us thought after his performances in the World Cup he was going to go to become or to fulfill his potential that he was showing in his early years in Iran. What do you think, Arash, of this current situation with Hariri and the future with Alireza Beyranban?
At the moment, it's clearly favoring Alireza Beyranban. He's doing a good job with Persepolis. I think with Hagigi, he has a chance to come back to Team Melli eventually. I mean, I can't see why not. He's still young. He still has some good years ahead of him. The only problem right now is he's not attached. He's not signed with the club. It's almost, you're wondering, like, what is he doing? I mean, that's the question. What is he doing? Does he want to play football? I'm sure there are some teams that would like to sign him up, and we don't know, which league and which European country. But I think the most important thing for him right now is that he needs to be playing. And like I said, if it's a league that's not really, really well respected, well, right now that shouldn't be his issue. He just needs to get back on the field and start making a name for himself again.
Pezhman, what do you think about this current situation with Hariri? And do you think Queiroz is really trying to send him a message after his emission from the national team to really say, look, you need to go and find yourself a club? Because for me, this is ridiculous. A goalkeeper of international caliber without a club for almost 5 or 6 months now. What do you think about all this?
It's really embarrassing, and I do agree with you. It should be a really important message from Queiroz to Hariri, that no matter how good you are, if you don't play games, you won't be in the national team either. My question is to Hariri, how lousy is your staff that is handling these kind of questions? Your agents. I mean, if you aren't able to find any club that wants you for over 6 months now, it gotta mean something. I don't know what. Maybe his expectations are too high, but he should really find a club, because he maybe never will return to the national team if the other goalkeepers keep playing good.
Moving on to the next topic in the squad, after the suspension of Sonahai Safi, we found out that Andranik Teimurian is supposedly injured and he won't be in the squad, which gives us as fans something else for a headache. Arash, what do you think about the lineup for us in central midfield going into the game against Syria? Of course, Andranik wouldn't be involved because of his injury. Housafi suspended. But we've seen the return of Kamal Komyabinia, Persepolis' defensive midfielder, and also Ali Karimi of Dynamo Zagreb, 22-year-old central midfielder. What do you think about this game and the way we'll line up in central midfield?
Well, with the suspension of Hadj Safi, naturally, I am going to be a little concerned about the left side. He's a good winger. He knows the game very well. He's done a good job for Team Elite. But like when you mentioned Kamal Kamyabinia, like you said, has been doing a good job for Persepolis. Maybe it's time for him to play defensive midfielder with Saeed Izzatullahi. I think that could be one of Queiroz' choices. As far as his attacking midfielders, I'm sure we'll see Ali Reza Jahan back in there as well as Ashkan Dejaga, who will probably be wearing the captain's armband. Possibly even, I think it'd be tough to decide whether it's going to be Shojai or Amiri. I mean, if I'm using a little bit of personal bias, I'd probably say that I'd rather go with Amiri, but it's going to be tough. I think that for defensive midfield, Izzatullahi and Kamyabinia sounds like a good idea, or maybe even Queiroz might even try to play a little more safe with his defensive midfielders by of course still using Izzatullahi, but maybe using Izzatullah Purgaz. I know he's a center back, but he's also played before as a defensive midfielder as well.
Pezhman, I like the sound of Kamyabinia and Izzatullah in central midfield because that really gives us a good combination in defensive midfield. You have a player like Izzatullah who likes to pass and spread the game, and also Kamyabinia who loves to get stuck in. He's a real fighter in the centre of the field. But also we have Omid Ebrahimi, who's been in the squad for the past few games, but he's not been involved in the games. Do you think this is a good opportunity for him to return to the lineup and really show why he deserves to start in that position?
That's a good question, actually. Ebrahimi, he was almost becoming a regular when Andranik quits. Nekolam quits. And I thought actually that he would be the starting player, but then Izzatullahi have been the first choice. For me, I would like to see some experience there and some depth. So I would actually prefer Ebrahimi before Kamyabinia. For me, I don't know, Kamyabinia, he's one of those players that do really good in the league, especially as a midfielder. But as soon as they play in the national team, they choke, or they can't be as good as we expect them to be in the league. Ebrahimi, at least he has some more experience. He played in the Champions League for a while. He's been in some good clubs as Sepahan and Esteghlal, although Kamyabinia have done good in Persepolis. I would like to see Ebrahimi to have some strength and some depth in the midfield before Kamyabinia.
Moving further on the pitch and going to the striker position, of course, Azmoun being suspended for this game, the door is basically wide open for Mehdi Taremi, Reza Ghouchan-Nejad and Karim Ansari-Fard to start up front. And to be honest, I can make a case for any of the three to start. Of course, Ghouchan-Nejad has had a great season with the Herenveen in the Dutch top division, and Ansari-Fard has been performing really well with his club, Panionios. Really tough names, these Greek names, in the Super League. What do you think about the situation, and who are you expecting to start up front for us, Pezhman?
I think Reza Ghouchan-Nejad will start in front as a striker, but maybe we'll even see Ansari-Fard on the left or right side, or maybe just next to Ghouchan-Nejad. For me, it's really hard to predict how Queiroz wants to play and what kind of 11 he chooses to play, because what he have done so greatly in my mind, that the players, they know how to play. They have a system. So I think a professional player such as Ansari-Fard can play in another position and still do that really good. But with Azmoun missing, I think Ghouchan-Nejad will play from start. But all of a sudden, it won't surprise me if he will play Taremi, because we didn't expect Taremi to play in a couple of games before, but still he did. So we'll see.
Arash, personally, I'll be really disappointed not to see Ansari Fad starting. I mean, this is a guy who was criticised for so many years for staying in Iran and playing his club football for Persepolis and Taraktor Sazi. And now that he's moved to Europe and he's been playing so well, we've seen the rise of Azmoun. He's not been getting his chance. But for me, this is an opportunity for him to start the game and really prove why he deserves to have a shot at the number 9 spot. What do you think? Do you think he should be given that opportunity, or we should go with a safer option in Reza Housham-Nejad, who's been tested there before and he's scored so many goals for us?
Very good question. I like Ansari Fard a lot, but the one thing I want to point out about him is that in some ways he's also reminded me a bit of some of those players. They do well for their club, but they don't really do such a great job for the national team, in big matches. I mean, personally, I think it's possible that Taremi might start, and I would like to see Reza Ghouchanejad come off the bench to be that super sub for Carlos Queiroz, because I think fatigue will play a big factor in this match coming up against Syria.
I watch Taremi a lot in the league, and he's a fantastic striker. I think his movement is really well, but I feel as if every time I watch him that he really needs someone to be playing alongside him, so that he can link up with him and create more space for him. So I don't know if he can lead the line on his own. I wouldn't be disappointed if he starts, but as I said, I think Ansari Fard really has earned his chance to start. And as you mentioned, he's not been performing well for the national team every time he does get a chance, but it's usually coming off the bench for the last 10-15 minutes. So I think it'll be good for a change to see Ansari Fard starting and to see what he will offer us. Pezhman, coming to you. Of course, Syria, as we know, the current situation back home for them is really tragic. And I think, for me personally, looking at that, that has somewhat galvanized them to perform so well in the qualifiers, as are a 0-0 draw, and they've not been really conceding that many goals. So how do you think this game will go? And of course, we mentioned that it'll be a really tough game, but do you really think we'll drop points against Syria in Malaysia? And how do you think we should approach the game to make sure that we get the 3 points and return to Iran?
First of all, let's not forget Iraq. During the war in 2004, they became Asian champions, and nobody expected that. Although Iraq maybe is a better team than Syria on the paper, it still wasn't thought of as champions. Going back to the game, I haven't really seen Syria play that much, and what I've seen from them, they play with a lot of heart, and they do really good with what they have. Their players, all of them play in these Arabic leagues in Asia, and they have like a couple of good players, but they're actually quite a decent team. That if they will play defensively against Iran needs to very, very quickly in the game gear up and play a much faster game with a lot of pace. I would like to see more long balls from the left and from the right side, maybe even try to do some counter-attacking. But if Iran is supposed to have the ball against Syria, against a defensive Syria, then it's important that the ball will move around fast and the players will play fast, because that's the way to beat Syria in my mind.
Arash, I'm in a similar situation to Pezhman, that I've not really watched too many of their games, but I did catch their under 23s a couple of years ago in the Asian Championships, and they looked really good. They had one player called Omar Kharibin, who is probably one of the best players in that tournament, and he'll be involved against Iran. He usually plays in the front three or behind the striker, and he's a really quick, tricky player who has the ability to score goals. But how do you think we should approach this game tactically and also mentally as well? Because Syria have nothing to lose. They know they wouldn't qualify for the World Cup. But at the same time, they've got a lot to fight for. They've got a lot of reason to fight and get a result. So it'll definitely won't be an easy game for us. How do you think we should approach this game?
I think Team LA needs to approach the game just by doing what they've been doing. I know that could sound like a very easy answer because, but the thing is, we've seen Team LA be inconsistent at times. So it's tough. It's a tough one to answer. But I think overall, they gotta play the way they've been playing. I think it could be a little tricky. I think we're going to see what happens. I think what happens in the very early parts of the game is going to decide the rest of the match, because we got to see if Iran's going to come out guns blazing, trying to score early, or are they going to try and control the ball and sit back a bit and kind of see where the game goes from there. I think that a team like Syria, they're probably going to park the bus. They've only, like you mentioned earlier, that they haven't conceded a lot of goals. They've only conceded 2, but they've only scored 1. So clearly they're that type of team that can frustrate you. And like I said, they'll probably park the bus. They'll be looking to capitalize on a mistake by Team LE. And so the whole point here with Iran is that they need to be on their game. They need to make sure that they're playing smart and that they don't take any big risks very early on.
Just before we wrap up the podcast, I'd like to know your predictions for this game. For me, I think we'll win the game. I'd say 2-0, but I'm not really very good at predicting games, but I'm hoping this time it'll be different. Pezhman, what do you think? What result do you think we'll get on Tuesday?
Can I have 3 predictions? Because I think it will either be a draw, kind of like the China game, or Iran will barely score a goal and keep it 1-0, or it will be like this monster killing and it will be 6-0 to Iran. So that's my predictions.
A lot of variety in there. Arash, what do you think?
Well, I'm not going to have as much variety because I think there's only 2 possible results for this match, and I think it could be one of those frustrating draws that we experienced with Iran had at China. Obviously, it's a match we don't want to talk about very much. But I think, like I said, only 2 possible outcomes. I think you'll see possibly one of those frustrating draws, or maybe Iran gets a goal maybe on a set piece, and they just, gut it out and defend hard and just find a way to hold on to those 3 points. Maybe some of our nails will be, maybe we'll be biting our nails a bit. Maybe I'll be pacing around a bit, but that's what Team LE is pretty much used to that. It's a routine with Team LE.
Definitely. Guys, thank you very much for your contributions. But just before we leave, as I mentioned, we received a few questions on Twitter, and we'll just go through them. Pezhman, I'll come to you with this one. PGC1937, he's asked, I think we can breathe easy about our qualification chances.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
He's asking at what stage do you think we can breathe easily about our qualification chances?
Very last game.
Really? So you don't think a game in one of the upcoming games, if we win them, then we can say, we're 90% through?
No, because I think South Korea and Iran will be really, really close to each other. And the third team fighting, either Uzbekistan or maybe Qatar, will be just 3 points behind, making it like a goal different story if Iran won't be the first team. So I won't be settled at all.
Arash, what do you think?
I got to go with a very similar answer like Pezhman. But I also want to say, of course, you don't want to just go back to past games. I'm sorry, I don't like to do this a lot, but I feel like if Iran, had Iran defeated China in China, and then they're getting ready to, and of course maybe find a way to get a victory against Syria, I'd say maybe you could kind of breathe easily a little bit for the moment after the first set of games against after playing each team one time, after basically after 5 matches. But it's, what can I say? After watching Team LA for a long time, I don't think you can breathe easily. Just when you're feeling like everything's going smooth, because a lot could change in football. There's many opportunities to get points, but that also means there's lots of opportunities to drop points as well. And in this group, I don't think, like I've said before, I don't think you're going to find any easy matches in this group.
Definitely. And the last question comes from Shervin, and he's asking, what do you think the most benefiting result for us is in the South Korea against Uzbekistan match? And Uzbekistan and South Korea will be playing a couple of hours before us on Tuesday, a very important game that since Uzbekistan is only 1 point behind us and South Korea 3 points behind us. Arash, what would be your ideal result in that game?
Another good question. My first instinct naturally is to always say, let's not worry about the result between those two teams in that match, because us Team LA fans, I know we're not the ones on the field, but I like having the mindset where us Team LA fans need to only care and focus about what Iran does when they play. But but of course you mentioned Uzbekistan has 9 points, South Korea has 7. You know what? When I look at the standings, I feel like I don't know how to really answer that question. I don't know what would be which result would be most beneficial. I think a lot of people might say that, both of them, sharing the spoils, a point for each, would probably be beneficial for Iran, considering, if they beat Syria, I think a draw between Uzbekistan and South Korea would be most beneficial.
Pezhman, I completely agree with Arash in the sense that we shouldn't worry about the result of other matches. We should just concentrate on ours and win our game first. But if I'd probably had to pick a result that would be the ideal result for us, it would be a draw. But what do you think? What are your thoughts about the important game between South Korea and Uzbekistan?
If I want to choose a winner, my instinct would go with South Korea, because I think South Korea in the long run would be a more difficult contender for Iran than Uzbekistan, which means that Iran and South Korea would continue winning their games and not letting other teams getting results. But if
just before you finish, if Uzbekistan win their game against South Korea, then and providing that we win against Syria, South Korea would be 6 points behind us. Don't you think that would be a better result for us in the standings, that we'd only have to worry about Uzbekistan?
Exactly, that was my point. But my other point, that if you look at the standings now, you would cheer for Uzbekistan. But that means if Iran and Uzbekistan would win, they will have a wider gap to South Korea. But to be honest, I'm more worried about South Korea than Uzbekistan, because I think in the long run, South Korea will get their shit together. Sorry for the language, and manage to go to the World Cup, such as they always do. And Uzbekistan, they have been so close so many times. This will be a new choke for them. I personally would love to see Uzbekistan in the World Cup. I'd like to see new teams in the World Cup. But I think South Korea, with all the talent in that team, will still be the one finishing above Uzbekistan.
Interesting points there. Thank you very much, guys, Pezhman and Arash, for your contributions to this episode. And thank you very much for listening. We'll be back after the game against Syria, which is on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central European Time. Am I right, Pezhman, or is it 1 o'clock Central European Time?
It's 1 o'clock Central European Time.
Right, thank you for correcting me. Of course, we'll all be watching the game and hoping that Iran returns to Tehran with the precious 3 points. But we'll be back to discuss and analyse the game. Until then, thank you for listening and goodbye.